Companies are pouring tens of billions of dollars into generative AI, and they're all expecting this massive revolution. But, behind all that hype, a very different picture is starting to emerge. There's this huge gap opening up between the very few companies that are absolutely crushing it with AI and pretty much everyone else. So let's dive in and figure out what's really going on.
Let's just start with a number that should honestly make you pause. Despite all the money, all the investment, a staggering 95% of organizations are getting zero, and I mean literally zero, return on their GenAI investments. It's this quiet, massive failure happening in just about every industry out there. And this is what people are now calling the GenAI Divide. It's this huge chasm between that tiny 5% of companies that are getting real value, often millions of dollars from AI, and the other 95% who are just stuck, spinning their wheels with nothing to show for it. So the big question is, what are those 5% doing that everyone else isn't? Here's our game plan for this explainer. We're going to really unpack that GenAI divide. We'll look at why so many of these pilot programs just fizzle out. Then we'll get into the playbook for success and where the real money, the real ROI is hiding. And we'll wrap up by looking at what's next, the agentic future. So first up, the great GenAI divide. And the core of the problem is this really strange paradox. Everybody's using AI, adoption is through the roof, but actual business transformation, it's incredibly low. And this chart, wow, it just lays it all out perfectly. Look at this drop-off for custom AI tools in companies. You've got 60% of companies checking them out. That number just plummets to 20% who actually try a pilot. And then a tiny 5% actually implement them in a way that makes a real-world difference. Most of what's being sold as some big enterprise AI solution is just the research shows it's a much deeper issue. This is where things get really interesting. See, employees are using AI constantly, but it's not the official company software. They're using their personal subscriptions to tools like ChatGPT, what's being called shadow AI. Why? Because they say the answers are just plain better and they already know how to use it. Meanwhile, the expensive official company tools just feel clunky, rigid, and totally out of sync with how they actually work. And right here, this is the heart of that learning gap. The enterprise tools are totally static. They don't learn when you give them feedback. You have to feed them the same context over and over again for every single task. You can't really customize them to your specific workflow, and they totally fall apart the second they see an edge case. They just don't have the memory or the ability to adapt that people need for real important work. Okay, so we've talked a lot about the problem. Let's flip this around and talk about the solution. How do the smart companies, that top 5%, actually buy AI? Turns out, they're using a completely different playbook. I mean, the data on this couldn't be clearer. For companies that go out and buy AI, by forming strategic partnerships with specialized vendors, their success rate is about 67%. For the ones who try to build it all themselves, in-house, just 33%. You are literally twice as likely to succeed, and this playbook shows a totally different way of thinking. The winners aren't just clicking buy on some software, no. They demand deep customization for their specific workflows. They measure success based on real business outcomes, and this is crucial. They treat their vendors like long-term partners who will grow with them, not just as suppliers to squeeze on price. Now let's put ourselves in the shoes of the people building this stuff. What are the smart vendors doing? Well, they get what those buyers want, and they're building their products specifically to get them across that GenAI divide. And this is what those enterprise buyers are practically begging for. And take a look at what's at the top of the list, trust. And what's not on the list? Something like the biggest, most powerful model. Buyers care way more that you actually understand their unique workflow, that your tool won't blow up their current processes, that it's secure, and, this is the big one, that it has the ability to learn and get smarter over time. Let's follow the money. Because when companies do manage to cross that divide and get a real return on their investment, it's almost never where they, or frankly the media, think it is. If you look at where the AI budget is being spent, it's all in these flashy front and center departments, like sales and marketing. But this is not where the really big wins are happening. The real, jaw-dropping ROI, it's hidden away in the back office. We're talking about companies saving up to $10 million a year by automating these less glamorous processes, like customer service intake or document processing. They're completely eliminating the need for expensive business process outsourcing. The savings are massive, but it's all happening quietly, far away from the spotlight. And that brings us to the final piece of the puzzle, the future. Because the companies that have already figured this out, they're already looking ahead to the next massive shift in AI.
The really big idea on the horizon is something called the agentic web. Instead, imagine a future where these intelligent AI agents can find each other online, negotiate with each other, and coordinate to get complex tasks done across the whole internet all by themselves. This isn't just a smarter chatbot, it's a completely different way of getting things done. And listen, this isn't some far-off sci-fi thing. It is happening right now. Pilots for these agentic systems are already in the works. Over the next year and a half, companies will start locking in their vendors for this stuff. The cost and pain of switching to a different provider will be so high, the window of opportunity is closing, and it's closing fast.
On the head, once your company has invested months, maybe years, teaching an AI system all the unique quirks of how your business actually works, it's a non-starter. That learning process itself becomes the competitive advantage, and it locks in the winners, leaving everyone else even further behind. So, all of this really boils down to one final crucial question. Are you actually building a bridge to get to that real, tangible value? Or are you just making the divide even wider? The answer to that question is probably going to define where you stand for the next decade.